On this episode of Citizens, we get the chance to visit Feed Nova Scotia. We'll learn all about the food crisis in the province, how the people in our communities find themselves in need of assistance, and how for 35 years this charity operates with donations and volunteers to supply emergency food support across Nova Scotia. Today, I had the opportunity to go to Feed Nova Scotia in Dartmouth. I wanted to learn more about the way the organization worked, how many people were actually in need of food support, and of course, meet some of the volunteers that help make it all happen. To get a better picture of all of this, I first spoke with Karen. Hi, Karen. Thanks so much for speaking with us today. Would you mind telling me a bit about your role here at Feed Nova Scotia?
Sure. So I'm Karen, and I've been working here at Feed Nova Scotia for almost 10 years. My role is really around raising the food, funds, and awareness to support all of the work that we do here, titled Director of Development and Communications. But for me, it's really about the work that I get to do every day in helping the community to connect with the work that we're doing and connecting with our member agencies across the province.
Right. What is Feed Nova Scotia?
Feed Nova Scotia is a registered charitable organization. Our mission is to increase food security through food distribution, education, and collaboration. A very big part of that involves what you're seeing right here in our warehouse, and that is the food distribution piece. So we would support a network of 144 agencies from one end of the province to the other, helping them to provide support in their local communities. And those agencies represent food banks and shelters and soup kitchens, other broad-based community service organizations for whom food is just a piece of what they do as well, like the Salvation Army or Shelter Nova Scotia, Phoenix Youth Programs, and so on. So we are distributing about $11 million worth of food every year. That food comes in from a variety of sources. The food that we receive from the grocery sector is such a key part of the work that we do. We get a huge level of support from farmers in Nova Scotia. Some 16% of all the food that we distribute comes from farmers. And then, of course, the support that we get from everyday individuals, just like you and me, that are volunteering their food, their money, and their time. And it's all about trying to provide support for so many people in our province who are struggling with food insecurity. We get all kinds of food, really. What we try to encourage our donors to do is think about any food that you would want to put on your plate is the kind of food that we want to be receiving and distributing. Food that's of a high nutritious quality is so, so important. When people are food insecure and they are struggling just to provide food for themselves and for their families, we want to make sure that they're getting the best possible food. About 56% of what we distribute is fresh and frozen products, so perishables. I think that's often really surprising to people, because when you hear someone doing a food drive in a community, they say, bring your non-perishable food item. Well, it's practical for people to donate non-perishable items at a food drive and so on. But in fact, so much of the food that we get that is coming from the farmers, from the grocery sector and other manufacturers is fresh and frozen food. And we especially have a real drive to try to increase that fresh produce, especially meats and dairy products and so on are really, really key as well.
What are some of the different ways that people can help with Feed Nova Scotia?
Everything that we do here is only because people want to reach out to help. So there are really 4 key ways that people can do that. You can donate food, and that's as simple as dropping it in a grocery bin at one of the local grocery stores in your area, or donating it directly to Feed Nova Scotia. If you're a larger company and you have big quantities of food, please reach out. We have the capacity to receive food, even that you may consider surplus or unmarketable. Please reach out to us. We have the ability to store and receive that here. If it's a large amount, we can even come to pick it up. So step 1, you can donate food. Step 2 is donate money. We require about $4 million a year to run this organization, and that allows us to distribute some $11 million worth of food on top of all of the other awareness and education activities that are taking place, supporting our member network across the province to build capacity in their communities. Funds are so, so important to everything we do. Every $2 that we receive allows us to distribute enough food for 3 meals. And that's just the food distribution piece. It's also about helping to fuel every aspect of our work beyond the food distribution as well. So you can donate food, you can donate funds, you can donate your time. Volunteering is a really, really critical part of what we do. Volunteers truly are the lifeblood of this organization. We have some volunteers who have been coming in week after week, month after month, year after year to really put their heart and soul into helping to keep this organization going, and we're so grateful for that. And then the fourth way that you can get involved is to use your voice, to join us in trying to create that level of intolerance and passion to inspire political will to make big systemic changes so that everyone has the opportunity to thrive in Nova Scotia.
Karen, how does food distribution work?
So at Feed Nova Scotia, we receive food from a variety of different sources. And once it arrives here in our warehouse, it gets processed to look at everything from food safety, best before dates, any damage to the product, and so on. We want to make sure that they're getting a balanced delivery of food, not all peanut butter in one and all cereals in another. When that food goes out to those food banks, it gets loaded on our trucks in the morning. We have 3 5-ton trucks that are refrigerated trucks, and they get loaded up each morning, and they head out across the province to do their deliveries. On the way back, they will hopefully, when it's a good day, pick up donated product to backhaul here to our warehouse, and that could be coming from individual donors, from farmers, from the grocery retail sector, and so on. And they are loading up with some food here at the beginning of the day, but primarily they are picking up surplus, unmarketable food from retailers, from the hospitals, from restaurants, and so on. It could be a baked casserole or prepared sandwiches and salads and so on that weren't put out for consumption and are now able to be collected by us and distributed to shelters and soup kitchens for consumption that same day. There's a real sense of family that exists here at Feed Nova Scotia. We have a lot of the same volunteers that have been coming back week after week, month after month, and so on, and they definitely become a part of our family. And so I think that sense of just people connection is a part of the culture that's here, that passion for wanting to help one another, the respect that we all share for each other, and for those that are receiving support. That's a big part of the culture at Feed Nova Scotia as well. Out at our member agencies, you're going to feel a different environment every time you walk into the door of each of those different organizations. But ultimately, everybody who is involved at Feed Nova Scotia, at those agencies, is wanting to help to make life better for people who are struggling, and just wanting to help to give a little hand up. Everyone knows that we all need help at some time.
Next up on Citizens, we get a chance to talk with some of the volunteers at Feed Nova Scotia. After chatting with Karen about how Feed Nova Scotia was organized, she showed me how some of the donated food was sorted by hand.
So this is our non-perishable food sorting area. We have volunteers in here 5 days a week, and over here they're first going to sort through the food, just looking for product integrity and food safety. Checking things like best before dates and any damage to the product is so important, because we want to make sure that all the food that gets distributed is in a safe and respectful condition when it gets to the people on the other end. And then once it's determined to be food safe, using Canada Food Inspection Guidelines, it comes over here, and we're going to be sorting the food into the different food categories. So we got non-perishable grains and meats and alternatives and soups and stews, fruit and veg, and so on. So that once the product gets over on the other side here and gets weighed, it can be used to build the orders that go out to the food banks, making sure that every food bank is getting a good variety of food from different categories.
We've been volunteering here for a lot of years. We feel that important job, and we're here to do it.
19 years for me.
And 18 for me. When I retired, I thought life has to have a purpose, And the purpose has to be doing good for someone in our community, and working with Feed Nova Scotia fills that need beautifully. And I like to come on a weekly basis because I really like the people that we volunteer with as well. It's a great crew, and we work hard and we have a lot of fun. Every week we solve all the problems of the world, and we form good friendships, and we even socialize together outside of the warehouse, so it's wonderful.
Oh, I've been here about 3 years. I work in the warehouse here, sorting goods, and my wife is with me, and she does data entry in the offices. Giving back to the community, you know, and that it makes you feel good that you're helping other people out, and and meeting the other people that you work with. It's very satisfying, and you meet a lot of interesting people and a lot of good people. The staff is so friendly, and they meet you at the door, and they know your name, and they always say that. And the people that you work with always say good morning and how was your week. And so it's a very friendly place, and you always feel good about coming here and leaving. You know, you're always saying goodbye, and they'll say, see you next week. So everybody's very friendly here.
After speaking with some of the wonderful volunteers at Feed Nova Scotia, I visited with Kay at Gateway Community Food Bank in Sackville. I wanted to get a glimpse of where some of the food ended up and learn about the people it helped support. Kay, so tell me a little bit about Gateway Community Food Bank.
We're open 2 days a week. We take calls for messages, and we call people back and set up appointment time. We do the orders a little bit tapered to the clients. If there's babies, we put, baby food or that kind of thing.
What's the food bank's relationship to Feed Nova Scotia?
We're a member agency of Feed Nova Scotia, and every Tuesday morning they bring an order, and it's shared out among the food banks, and we're one of them. So great relationship with Feed Nova Scotia, actually. I feel very supported by them.
Do you think the food bank would be able to survive without Feed Nova Scotia?
Oh, no, it would not.
Why is that?
Because I don't think we could do everything ourselves. We couldn't. There would have to be a lot more funding to be able to supply everything that we need for all the orders that we get each week.
How do you think the food bank has contributed to the community of Lower Sackville?
I think food banks in general makes people feel more secure that there's a place they can go. Because we're a food bank, we're involved in other things. Like there's a community dinner that happens once a month, and all different churches in the area take turns with cooking meals, we invite all of our food bank people to go. And so I think that the community now is more aware of what's happening because we're involved in those things. Different places of business will put out a box for their customers, like dental or eye places, to put food in for the food bank. So, I think that we make the community aware that there are people who need, and they're happy to give.
Do you have any stories on the top of your head of anybody that's been helped either by Feed Nova Scotia or by your food bank here?
There's this lady who came in to pick up orders for, I think it was her 2 daughters that needed to come to the food bank. And she stood over the 2 orders and started to cry. So what's wrong? Is there something wrong? And she said, I don't know what my daughters would do without you guys. She said, I can't give them any more than I give them, And that's kind of really neat that the mother would see it from that perspective. And a while ago, there was a woman who came in, and she had to wait to be checked into our Link to Feed. So one of the volunteers asked her if she wanted a cup of coffee. She said, no, but do you have any food? Because I'm really hungry. I haven't eaten in 2 days. So we happened to have some things that we had made up to demonstrate how to cook something, or, we'll do that, like if there's something that they wouldn't know. So we gave her some things and found, some ham and made a sandwich for her. And it's like we became instant friends, like just so beautiful. She hugged, and several times we've had people come in and say, can I have a hug? So it's not just the food, it's the whole atmosphere of coming into the food bank and feeling that they have people here that really care about them. I got a message on the phone saying, thank you very much. I don't know what we'd do without your food bank. We've had several calls like that. People just calling back to say thank you. And knowing that that's not why you do it, but it is really important to know how you're touching the lives of other people. Mm-hmm. That for me is the highlight, you know, or someone being so desperate. One time there was a lady who came in and there was an apartment-sized sewing machine that came from Feed Nova Scotia. We get all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So this, you know, the other volunteer and I were saying, who can we give that to? Oh, she's coming today. So when she comes, I said, you think you could use an apartment-sized sewing machine? She said, oh, I have goosebumps. She said, 2 nights ago, my 2 grandchildren, little girls, they were like 4 and 6, said, Nanny, can you make us some Barbie doll clothes? And she said, oh, sweetie, Nanny would, but she doesn't have a sewing machine. And we had a sewing machine for her. That, to me, is just amazing kinds of things that happen.
Next up on Citizens, we talk with Mandy from Shelter Nova Scotia to learn about the critical nature of food for her organization and how Feed Nova Scotia helps fill that gap. After seeing how Feed Nova Scotia helps support the communities of this province, I visited with Shelter Nova Scotia. I wanted to learn more about how people find themselves food insecure and the misconceptions surrounding this vulnerable community. To do this, I sat down with Mandy. Hi Mandy, thanks so much for speaking with me today. Could you tell me what is Shelter Nova Scotia?
Shelter Nova Scotia is comprised of 6 facilities at various stages. We have 2 in homelessness, 2 in housing, and 2 in corrections. And we provide supports to people who are experiencing homelessness, trying to come back into community, and have experienced poverty. I'm the coordinator of volunteers in food security for 6 locations. So primarily focusing in the last few years on Metro Turning Point. Yeah.
Ultimately, where do you hope to see your relation with Feed Nova Scotia go in the future?
So we have a great relationship with them over the last 3 years, since they've supported us longer than that, but in my role, the last 3 years, having a brand new food program at Shelter Nova Scotia, We've developed a great relationship. We've been able to purchase equipment from grants we've applied for, which has been amazing. So we have 2 fridges in one of our facilities. We have stoves. It's endless what they've done for us. We wouldn't have been able to do that. Our fridge had duct tape holding it closed in one of our facilities before. Our stoves break, so we don't have, you know, money to just go and do that. So they've helped us with that. They've helped us with days of sharing and kind of getting the word out that people in shelters are food insecure, because there's been that general misconception that they're just homeless and food doesn't go along with homelessness. There was a disconnect somewhere. So we've been building relationships on that. And our relationship can, I believe, only get stronger as we talk about different food choices and not so much processed and refined sugary foods, but all those foods that are nutritious and healthy, because the head-gut connection, if we're always eating sugar, then we are constantly up and down. So we're trying to grow that relationship more, and Feed Nova Scotia is doing that as well. I think 56% of the donations to Feed Nova Scotia are perishable, which means that they're fruit or vegetables or meats of some sort, so which is fantastic. And us being able to utilize those are helping our population get healthier.
What are some misconceptions around people that experience homelessness?
So when people experience homelessness or see homelessness, or people experiencing homelessness, they may think that, why don't they get a job? Why are they asking for things? So people don't recognize that people are people. People are vulnerable. And when you get caught in a cycle of poverty, that you can you can lose your house, you can lose your job, and you can end up with nothing. So changing that perception can be a little bit hard because we do have people experiencing homelessness that also experience drug addiction, that also experience alcoholism, that also experience mental health issues. So all of those, it's kind of entrenched in that misconception. Mm-hmm. So understanding that people are people and to look into someone's eyes and just see them for another human being is a big thing. There's so many layers to it. It's not that we just have people who are experiencing drug addictions mm-hmm. or experiencing alcohol. People may become sick, they may lose their job, they may be divorced, and they may have already grown up in a cycle of poverty. So to try and get out of that, it's hard to do that. Mm-hmm. And then when you're experiencing homelessness, it's hard to have food and not experience food insecurity because you don't have access to a fridge. Right. You can't carry a stove around in your backpack with lighters, and mm-hmm. You don't have a fridge that you can carry around or a can opener. So those things are often pieces of the puzzle that people don't think about, mm-hmm. And we don't know what we don't know. So people experiencing homelessness are definitely food insecure as well. Mm-hmm. In shelter life, waking up where you seek shelter, and the first thought would be, where am I going to go for breakfast? Because if shelter didn't offer food, which we currently do, but if they didn't, then you go, where am I going to get my next meal? Mm-hmm. So that's the first thought after you just woke up in a shelter with 54 other men.
How do you think the community could go about supporting your shelters even further?
So they could adopt a meal with Shelter Nova Scotia, which means that they would, community groups, organizations, families could adopt a meal, cook it, come in, bring it in and serve it in one of our facilities. They could donate healthy food based on our good food guidelines. They could come in and apply to volunteer. So there's many ways across the board that they can help. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and log onto our website, of course, on our Facebook, follow us and see what the needs are. And we also have, at Christmas time, a lot of people donate. And I always talk about this. Christmas is a huge time to give, but people are not hungry only at Christmas. People are mm-hmm. hungry 365 days a year. And I think, the Christmas carol, Scrooge said, keep Christmas in your heart all year round. So I would hope that people do that all year round and know that, when Tiny Tim brings that turkey, a turkey in July would be lovely too.
Visiting with Feed Nova Scotia and some of their member agencies had really opened my eyes to the vast network of wonderful people and volunteers committed to aiding those in our communities who desperately need our support. If there's one thing we can't live without, it's food. And Feed Nova Scotia is on the front lines, helping ease the stress of hunger in our province. But they couldn't do it without the help of the grocery stores, restaurants, farmers, and everyday volunteers, like you, who give their time and resources year after year. Please continue to donate to Feed Nova Scotia to help the food crisis affecting thousands of Nova Scotians every day. You can donate money, time, or resources by going to feednovascotia.ca. If you are in need of emergency food support, please go to feednovascotia.ca/find-food or call 211 and select food support for a listing of services in your area.